If we could get a volunteer, who is, whoa, okay, that was a pretty fast hand. What's your name, young lady?
I'm Mary.
Mary, okay. Have you ever worn an Oculus before?
I have. Jason and I are roommates. No. Oh, no.
Well,
you have to fire up your computer.
Get ready.
Actually, Mary should probably
We
sit
turn
in
down the
this
bass.
seat,
Yeah, Mary.
and you should get your
Your name is
machine out of
Mary or Nary?
Nary walks
Okay.
this little
All right,
platform.
so
But you still have to get your box out of
Art of Hack rules.
Oh, I can see everybody,
Yeah, all
Okay.
right. So unfortunately,
but not fully.
we can't
front row.
we can't drop the whatever these are, these
Can
floodlights.
you guys see what's going on there?
Oh,
Okay,
you
great.
guys can see it too.
Okay, so you can see
All right,
what
so-
Mary's seeing.
So there's a distinction. So there's a distinction to be made between virtual reality and this, and augmented reality and this, and we were not at all interested in virtual reality, at least insofar as the way that we or I understand it. Virtual reality is entirely modeled, so entirely artificial, and doesn't pull in. It's not an organic representation of the real world. And then augmented reality is a very sort of, at least insofar as the expressions of it that I've seen, it's very flattened. So it's sort of a very, you're looking at the real world, and there's an overlay that's laying on top of it, and those two things are not necessarily fully integrated, right? So at some point we were asked to consider by Andy what exactly the fuck it was that we were doing, and so it's not virtual reality, it's not augmented reality. Andy's contention was that perhaps it was distorted reality. Neither Jason nor I responded to that email, so I guess we weren't convinced.
Yeah, we were like, oh man.
I don't know. I kind of liked the notion of altered reality, and then there's also the possibility of filtered reality or maybe imported reality. But anyway, it's all sort of up for grabs. But do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we were talking about why it's not virtual reality and why it's not augmented reality. But in fact, you can also talk about why it is virtual reality and why it is, or why it could be augmented reality. It's virtual reality because you're not actually looking at the world. You are looking around a 3D world. Why it's not virtual reality is because it happens to be created from what actually is in front of you, as you can see. And it's not augmented reality because augmented reality, you've got a device and a 2D image of what your camera sees, and then some other 2D images overlaid on it. But in this setup, we can, because this is actually a 3D representation seen by the Kinect, we can put 3D augmentations. So it's blurring the boundaries and definitions, but it was so easy to just stick this on there that it's coming. So
one of the earliest observations that Ellen made was, oh, it looks kind of 2D, which admittedly it does, and there is something that's lost in this visual information. So we sort of struggled with how to express the depth information, since it doesn't come across. So you want to toggle through some of the...
Well, should we talk a little bit about some of the other limitations?
You want to talk about field of view and...
Right, and we'll do them.
All right,
as we go.
so there are two. So one of the first problems that we had was that there are two devices, and both of these devices have software libraries that are speaking to one another via open frameworks, right? And so both the Oculus and the Kinect have fields of view independent of one another. And so one of the the earliest sort of hurdles was for Jason, since he's the coder, was how to get those two fields of view to overlap. And it's the nature of the Kinect library. The assumption is that the Kinect is stationary. So the Kinect projects a cone from itself out into space, and the assumption is that the Kinect is not moving. So what that means is that our first experience of this hack was that in using the accelerometer in the Oculus, we could only, the field of view that the Oculus has and the field of view that the Kinect has, since they weren't initially tied together, as you tilted your head wearing the Oculus, you lost a greater and greater amount of depth information because the Kinect was in a fixed point in space. So I don't know if you...
Well, I just want to give a little technical background on the two technologies here. So the Kinect is a depth camera. So it's got a little color camera over here, and then it's shooting out infrared rays in a weird pattern, and they bounce back, and based on how they're displaced, it's giving a 3D image. But it's kind of like, it's a surface, right? Like it can't see behind you. So it sees up to you, and so it sees that you're in front of someone else, but it can't see what's behind you. So it's like a fake 3D. And then what the Oculus does is you give it a 3D world, and then it's got a USB cable, and it knows the degrees of how you're turning. And it uses that.
It understands the
Yeah,
orientation.
it's got a gyroscope in it. And so what it does is it turns the 3D world, right? It's kind of made for video games. It turns this 3D video game world in the opposite way that you're looking, fast enough that the illusion is you're actually in this world and you're looking around. So what we did is we took the Kinect, what the Kinect sees, and we made it move with it. So Mary, just close your eyes for a second, and I'll show them. So now move your head around. So wherever she looks, we're rotating what the Kinect sees to always be in front of her. So it's like this other level of illusion because.
Spaceships?
What? Yes. There's don't pay no mind to the flying saucer.
Oh, sorry. You didn't see anything. Right. So this is giving this actual kind of weird 3D image, and we're rotating it to follow this around. So that's what gives the illusion that you're actually seeing what the Kinect sees.
How come I can't see down here?
That's a
If
great
only
question,
when I
Mary.
look up to-
And that takes us to our next part, which is problems. The first problem is the Kinect can't see much closer than this, so it just, oh, I should go back. So if I get close, it just blacks out. The IR is reflected too much, it can't see it. And if the room was bigger, Mary, if you look down at the end of the room, right, so she can't see as far as the end of the room. So she's seeing a limited distance. She can't see too close to her, too far from her. The second thing that's a problem is our eyes have this natural depth of field that as things are further away, they're a little bit blurrier. The Kinect is a camera, so it doesn't have like a human depth of field. And then, of course, it's doing this weird, it's doing this weird sort of pop-up, like, remember those books, you'd open them and it would pop out like a menagerie or a castle or something. So it's kind of like that. It's a fake 3 dimensions, so you can see that. So we started to think, is there a way we can make it more immersive, more 3D?
Yeah, so there are certain visual cues that we rely on to understand depth, right? And one of them is a function of binocular vision. So there's this sort of feedback loop that's the angle at which your eyeballs actually are focusing on an object informs your understanding of how far away that object is from your face. And the Oculus in some way is approximating that by serving two very similar but slightly different images to either eye respectively. But you can see that it still falls short of the mark. Like, this looks very flat. So we were trying to figure out how to, so the first idea that we had, how to represent depth in some way that was more telling, was to overlay color hues that represent distance from the viewer.
So first we did grayscale. The closer something is to Mary, she'll see it brighter, and the further away it'll be darker. So like this.
Look at the audience
So
there.
yeah.
All right, so now, I mean, this is very sort of reduced, and essentially from the perspective of the viewer, we're communicating something about depth, but we're losing a lot of information about the specificity of the individuals, right? So all you're seeing are these sort of silhouetted cutouts, and as those objects move further back in space, they become darker.
Then we thought, what if we change the color along depth?
Right. So now, it's a little bit more interesting to look at, right? The depth is reflected as a color spectrum, but we're still missing any sort of differentiating characteristics, individuals' faces and whatnot.
We've lost the lighting, right? This lighting tells us a lot about the 3D shape of people and of shapes in the room. So we thought we'd mix the two together. And if you look back out into the audience, you'll see that it's still the same people, but they're a rainbow people.
Right. So now we've got more information about the specific individuals that we're looking at, but they're sort of tinted. I was going to say tainted. And you can see actually if someone were to walk up the aisle and Mary were to be looking at that person, so Andy, go walk to the back of the space.
And then come forward.
So you'll see that as Andy approaches,
Keep coming.
Come up to the stage.
Right.
You'll see that his hue changes as he approaches and so that communicates his proximity to the viewer.
Okay, so did we talk about all the problems? Oh, the other problem is that it's heavy.
Yeah, that's why I'm holding it.
She has
It's
to
like
hold it.
hurting my nose.
Also, this particular one lost the padding, so it's really painful.
Yeah, it's not.
But in general, it's just the technology is not there yet, and it's low resolution. But clearly, it's very interesting and a lot of potential. So if we talk about the potential, there's the potential for augmenting it. I'm gonna throw something in there. Oh.
Is that the?
Oh, look up, Mary. Look up.
Oh, it's only if I look up. Do I have to follow it?
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So in actuality, what's happening is that saucer is being rendered in three-dimensional space, and so if Mary is looking at an object out in the real world that is closer to her than where that flying saucer is, it will be obscured by the object in the real world. But even still, it's sort of a so it just moved behind. Right. So even still, it's still missing. It still doesn't quite communicate the fact that what she's looking at are actually, this image is comprised of points in space. So every one of,
and let's show that.
right, all right, so.
What's it, S? Right.
Right, so one idea that we had was, well, maybe we'll communicate something about the depth if we open up the step between the 2 points. There was the thought that maybe if there were gaps between each point, that would communicate something about depth, and that did absolutely fuck all.
And the zoom?
Right, there was a lot of nausea involved. It was mostly mine. We're trying to figure out how to overcome this problem.
Take a look around. So it's interesting, but you can actually zoom into the world. Let's zoom back out. Oh, that's in. Sorry. And you can also zoom out. There, you're doing great. And then if we bring it back to the normal zoom, you can also change the field of view. And then the last thing, and this is part like, so we were kind of trying to figure out I don't need my phone. We were kind of trying to figure out how to make people see the depth a bit more. And what it turned out is we made something really trippy. So another potential of this is you can have drug experiences without doing drugs, which would be more healthy for you. So if we just, put that on.
All right, so it's the second, and then do the one that oscillates on the Z.
And then the second one is moving the position of things on the Z-axis.
Right. Okay. So in a way, this begins to sort of communicate what's going on, because each one of those points are being rendered in three-dimensional space and moving forward and backward. And then being served up to her. So this isn't just sort of although it looks like it, it's not just a sort of cheesy 80s video effect.
Whoa,
90s. What's happening is each one of those points in space are being moved forward and backward along the Z-axis with respect to the viewer.
Right.
All right, on that very trippy note.
Yes, trippy.
So thanks, guys.